Heartwarming journey. Black CEO waited 5 minutes, then exposed and transformed her whole board. Aisha Carter stood before the towering glass walls of the boardroom. The vibrant, pulsating skyline of Atlanta reflected her fierce determination, but deep within, she grappled with a tidal wave of anxiety. The sleek, minimalist decor was a stark reminder of the corporate world that often felt unwelcoming to someone like her, a dedicated Black CEO leading the tech startup, TechRise. Her heart raced as she prepared for the pivotal meeting that could change everything. Growing up with a single mother who served in the army, Aisha was taught resilience. Her mom, a soldier, wrapped her arms around Aisha whenever times got tough, instilling values of hard work, integrity, and perseverance. Now, here she was, on the precipice of her dreams, only to face the judgment of a predominantly white board that whispered doubts with their every glance. They filed in one by one, their murmurs thick with tension, their skepticism palpable. 5 agonizing minutes ticked by as Aisha tried to ground herself in the moment, then it happened. She caught snippets of hushed conversation from behind the long table. 2 board members exchanged furtive looks, the shuffle of papers punctuating their laughter. "Can you believe she thinks she can lead us?" one sneered. "What has she even done?" Those words stung like a slap, sending heat through her cheeks as she fought to contain the anger surging within. This was more than just about her. It was a stark reminder of the unspoken barriers many like her face daily. Instead of retreating into silence, Aisha drew strength from the hardships of her journey. She could hear her mother's voice, echoing with pride and wisdom, "Never let anyone define your worth, Aisha." This was more than a board meeting. This was a stand for every young girl who felt overlooked, marginalized, or underestimated. As she stood to speak, the room fell silent. "Thank you for my time today," she began, her voice steady yet vulnerable. "I am here not just as a leader of TechRise but as someone who represents the dreams of countless people who have been told they don't belong in spaces like this." Aisha felt her heartbeat thundering in her chest. She steadied herself, knowing this was not just her fight, it was a fight for justice, for the economic inequities, for dismantling the biases that kept the boardroom from being as diverse as the world outside. Change will not occur in whispered judgments. It requires action, she continued, her voice growing stronger. She laid out her vision for an inclusive mentorship program aimed at uplifting underrepresented youth in tech, sparking a revolution in an industry that needed it most. The air crackled with tension, the board members shifting uneasily in their seats. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. With the stakes at their highest, Aisha's gaze swept across the boardroom, searching for signs of resistance or support. Would they close their ears to her message or finally see the urgency behind it? As she prepared to summarize her plea, a call for not just recognition but respect, she could feel the weight of their judgment pressing down, the silence of the room heavy with uncertainty. This moment held the power to either break her or build a path for generations to come. The tension was a taut line, ready to snap, setting the stage for a confrontation that not only sought to challenge the fabric of corporate America but perhaps redefine it entirely. As she took a deep breath, poised to deliver her final words, Aisha couldn't shake the feeling that change was on the horizon one way or another. This was only the beginning. Aisha's voice resonated through the boardroom like a battle cry. "It is time for us to evolve," she declared. The words echoed in the silence, a ripple of uncertainty and anticipation washing over the faces before her. She saw a few board members glance at each other, brows furrowing, doubt seeping out like a crack in a facade. But she pressed on, undeterred. "In embracing diversity, we find innovation. Our company will thrive when we uplift those who represent the future, a future where opportunities are equitable for everyone." With every sentence, the energy in the room shifted ever so slightly. Aisha took a step closer to the table, leaning in as if sharing a secret that could change everything. Imagine this: what if TechRise became the beacon for change? A leader not just in tech, but in cultivating true diversity and empowerment? Her eyes flickered over the board members, gauging their reactions. Some seemed wary, but others she could see a glimmer of curiosity, maybe even hope. Suddenly, a voice broke through the tension. "We appreciate your perspective, Aisha." It came from Steve, the head of marketing. He was known for his no-nonsense approach, often dismissive. "But can you show us how this will directly impact our bottom line?" That question hung in the air, a challenge wrapped in skepticism. Aisha paused, feeling the gravity of the moment. She had anticipated this, an approach that demanded statistics and projections, not faith or emotion. "Absolutely," she replied, gripping the edge of the table, drawing strength from her mother's teachings. "Studies show that companies with diverse leadership teams outperform their competitors. Our consumers are diverse. Shouldn't our leadership reflect that?" A wave of murmurs swept through the board. Was it skepticism, or were they beginning to listen? "By investing in underrepresented youth, we open avenues of talent that have been neglected for too long," she continued, her passion igniting. "This isn't just a feel-good project. This is our opportunity to innovate, to grow, and to lead." Aisha caught sight of a young intern standing just outside the door, her wide eyes fixated on the scene unfolding within. That small gesture, that simple connection, fueled Aisha's resolve further. "This isn't just about tech. It's about showing young people who look like me that their dreams aren't just possible, they're essential for a company that aims to lead." A shift was taking place. A few heads nodded, others whispered, debating not just among themselves but with the seeds of change Aisha was planting. But she wasn't finished. "Come to the mentorship programs. Meet the kids, see their passion and their potential. It's not a cost, it's an investment in the future of TechRise," she implored, her voice unwavering, filled with purpose. She could see them wrestling with the idea, their hearts combating their initial judgments. Then, a moment of silence enveloped the room. Aisha felt that charged energy once more. "Ask yourselves this: what legacy do we want to leave behind? Will TechRise be part of the change, or will we remain complacent?" Then, just as she started to feel the tides shifting, a voice from the far end of the table spoke. It was Margot, the board's financial analyst, who had been quietly watching. She leaned forward, eyes narrowed as if contemplating something deep. "You've given us a lot to think about." Aisha's heart raced. Was this the opening she desperately sought? But just as the moment felt ripe for transformation, the door swung open, interrupting their tension. An unexpected figure walked in, a former CEO and prominent mentor who had once stepped down from his role in light of his more controversial decisions. The room gasped, and Aisha's heart sank for a moment. But he wasn't stepping in uninvited, he had come to listen. "Can I add something?" His voice was steady, and the room went still. Aisha couldn't help but wonder, had he come to support her cause? Or was he there to dismiss her once more? As anticipation hung thick in the air, Aisha realized this was a defining moment that could sway the board in either direction. Would his words rally support for her vision, or would they be just another obstacle in her path? His gaze swept the room, lingering on Aisha for a moment longer than necessary. There was a flicker of recognition in his eyes, something that hinted at shared struggles. Then he turned to the board members, his presence commanding respect and attention. "I know I'm not here under the best circumstances," he began, the weight of his past evident in his tone. "But I'm here because I believe in the power of fresh perspectives. Aisha speaks of something that I've yearned for in my own tenure. Something we missed." He paused, letting the gravity of his admission settle in. Aisha felt her heart pick up, a mix of hope and fear stirring within her. Could he really be on her side? She didn't want to get her hopes up, but she sensed a kindred spirit. In my time, I was focused on traditional metrics: profits, projections, and results. I overlooked what truly drives us forward: diversity and empowerment. His eyes darted to Aisha again, almost apologetically. We failed to understand that engaging with diverse voices is not just good for business, it is essential. It's about being adaptable in a world that is changing faster than we can keep up. Aisha saw the board members leaning in, listening intently. She felt bolt upright, like a phoenix rising. This was it. This could be the moment to tip the scale. Do you know what happens when we fail to include everyone? He continued, his voice growing passionate. We stagnate. We become irrelevant. Look at the companies that are thriving. They're the ones who dare to include different voices right at the center of their strategies. Steve, who had been the most skeptical, shifted in his seat, his expression visibly torn. Aisha caught his gaze and offered a soft smile, a silent encouragement that seemed to reach him. Change won't happen unless we let go of the old ways, and we embrace the new, the former CEO spoke, his voice now softer but firm. Aisha is offering us a chance to lead in a way that future generations will applaud us for. A silence blanketed the room, but it wasn't one of doubt, it was a moment of realization. Aisha could see the flicker of understanding sparking around the table. This could be the breakthrough she had been striving for. Invest in mentorship and training, he added, not just for the external community but for our own team. Change starts from within. Exactly. Aisha interjected, bursting with excitement. This is not just about charity, it's a call to action. If we want to open endless pathways, we first need to weave new voices into the fabric of this organization. And then, just as the sunlight broke through the clouds, a soft voice interrupted the moment, but this time with resoluteness. Margot spoke again. We need to begin measuring success differently. Can we talk about re-evaluating our performance metrics? What would that look like? Aisha felt her heart leap. This was it. They were finally opening the door wider for dialogue and exploration. However, as voices began to rise in excitement, another member of the board, Sylvia, a hard-nosed strategist, cut through the chatter. Let us not get ahead of ourselves. What are the risks? If we consider these changes, are we exposing ourselves to backlash or financial loss? The optimism in the room dimmed again. Aisha's heart sunk as a wave of self-doubt washed over her. She clenched her fists under the table and took a deep breath. That's exactly why we need this transformation, she said, her voice steady, but laced with urgency. Staying stagnant in fear of the unknown is a risk far greater than embracing change. As she concluded, Aisha realized the transformation wasn't just about gaining allies, it was about standing still in the uncertainty of what could come next. The board seemed to hold its breath, caught at a precipice, teetering between fear and hope. Would they push through the new door of opportunity, or would they seal it shut once more? As that daunting question hung in the air, another knock echoed at the door, an unforeseen interruption, hinting at even more twists ahead. Aisha's heart raced, wondering what awaited them now. The door swung open, and the tension in the room seemed to snap like a rubber band. A woman walked in, her head held high, confidence radiating from her every move. Aisha recognized her immediately. Lena, a renowned consultant known for her no-nonsense approach and her fierce dedication to equitable practices in corporate settings. The moment she stepped inside, it was like a shadow lifting from the room. Sorry to interrupt, she said, not bothering to mask her resolve. But I couldn't help overhearing the conversation. It's vital that we seize this moment. Aisha felt her pulse quicken. Lena was a force of nature, and her mere presence sparked a new current of energy in the room. I've worked with too many organizations that hide behind fear, thinking change is costly, Lena continued, glancing at Sylvia with an unwavering gaze. But I assure you, the cost of stagnation is far greater. You aren't just looking at numbers, you're shaping lives. Aisha's vision isn't just about diversity, it's about redefining success. A hush fell over the board members again, but this time, hope filled the void. Aisha could see their interest peaking, a glimmer of bravery beginning to flicker in their eyes as they took in Lena's words. What if we don't just look at diversity as a metric, but as a culture? Lena pressed on, her voice rising with fervor. Imagine your employees feeling empowered, sharing ideas, collaborating in ways you've never seen before. That's the real goldmine. That's what innovation looks like. Steve leaned in, his eyes darting between Lena and Aisha. But what if we end up losing a significant portion of our current workforce? Change can often alienate established employees. Lena held his gaze. You must ask yourself, what do you want your legacy to be? Will it be maintaining the status quo, or will it be paving the way for a future that connects with a wider audience? Change is uncomfortable, yes, but so is regret. Aisha felt a stirring in her chest. This was the fire she had hoped to ignite, and Lena was fanning the flames. She caught Lena's eye and they shared a brief, encouraging nod like allies in a shared cause. Margot piped up again, if we focus on what we can build together, this might just turn into something beautiful for everyone involved. The board was beginning to shift, turning their uncertainty into curiosity. Aisha could barely contain her excitement. Was it really happening? Were they finally beginning to see the potential for change? Then, as if reading her mind, Lena took a step forward. Let us not approach this as a burden, but as an opportunity. An opportunity to set a precedent in this industry. To challenge ourselves and each other. Together. You have a chance to lead by example. To inspire. Aisha's breath hitched. The energy in the room was palpable, like an electric charge sparking the air. But just as that wave of hope began to gain momentum, an ominous crackle advanced across the overhead lights, flickering uncertainly before plunging the room into a sudden, jarring darkness. Gasps echoed off the walls. Aisha's heart sank momentarily as the darkness swallowed up the energy they had gathered. But even in that moment, she could feel the pulse of determination. It wasn't just a setback. It was a test. Stay calm. Lena's voice rang out, cutting through the murmur of confusion. This is temporary. We can use this as a moment to reflect and regroup. Aisha's mind raced. How would they regroup in the dark? Where would their ideas go? She could sense the apprehension returning as whispers erupted around the table, but just then, amidst the uncertainty, she spotted a beam of light from the hallway, illuminating one cautious, brave figure stepping into the room. The persistent flicker from a small flashlight cut through the tension, illuminating their path. Aisha took a deep breath, ready to embrace whatever came next. Who would emerge from this darkness? Would they find a new direction, or would shadows seal their fate once more? The beam of light revealed a familiar silhouette: Jordan, the head of technology, known for his analytical skills and deep intuition. His face was partially illuminated, and despite the flickering light, there was a sense of determination etched into his features. Everyone okay? He asked, his voice steady despite the circumstances. The flashlight danced around the room, casting long shadows and creating an atmosphere of cautious camaraderie. Aisha felt a wave of relief wash over her. Jordan's presence was a reminder that they weren't alone in this darkness. Lena was just inspiring us. Aisha blurted out, trying to rally the spirits. We were beginning to see how today could be a turning point. Right, Jordan nodded, shifting the light to the board members' faces. This is a moment, we can't let it slip away because the power went out. We have a chance to build something meaningful together. Sylvia's voice trembled as she spoke. But how can we move forward like this? The uncertainty, it's overwhelming. Lena stepped closer, her voice calm yet resolute. Uncertainty is part of the process. It's where growth happens. Maybe this blackout is a moment to pause and reflect on our true priorities. Are we ready to innovate, even if the path isn't clear? Aisha felt her heart quicken. It was true. They had the opportunity to dig deep, to confront their fears head-on, rather than allow obstacles to define them. She could see the flicker of curiosity reigniting in the eyes of the board members. Imagine, she ventured, if we harness this situation. We could brainstorm ideas as we wait for the lights to come back on. Draw on each other's strengths in this moment of darkness. Exactly. Jordan chimed in. Let us not just sit in the uncertainty, let us embrace it. It'll make us stronger. We can use this time to reconnect as a team, to articulate what we truly want to achieve together. Margot nodded enthusiastically, her voice gaining volume. We could create visions, share our dreams and desires. This dark room doesn't have to represent fear, it can symbolize new beginnings. Emboldened by Margot's suggestion, Aisha took a step forward. Let us break into pairs and share our aspirations not just for the company, but for ourselves. Let us dig into what diversity and collaboration truly mean to us individually. It doesn't matter that the room is dark, the light we need is within us. Slowly, the board members began to nod in agreement, their initial dread gradually transforming into excitement. It was clear they were ready to turn this setback into an opportunity, ready to rise rather than retreat. A wave of chatter began to ripple through the room as pairs formed. Aisha could hardly contain her joy as she heard snippets of ideas and dreams igniting, a collective fire of passion pushing through the suffocating gloom. See? This is what Lena meant, she thought. This is empowerment. But just then, the lights flickered back to life, illuminating their faces and revealing an unexpected sight. Steve had a pensive look, clearly unsettled by the whole process. As the room settled back into brightness, Aisha locked eyes with him. What are you feeling, Steve? She asked gently. She sensed there was more to his silence than mere hesitation. I'm just unsure. This is different from what I'm used to, he admitted, his voice almost a whisper. What if we don't get this right? Aisha swallowed hard, knowing that for this to truly work, they needed to confront those fears head-on. But how? Maybe, she began, her heart racing, we can transform this fear into a defining moment for our company. The air thickened with anticipation. How would they confront the fears that flickered within Steve? Would they find the courage to redefine their future? Aisha's heart pounded as she took in Steve's vulnerability. Silence stretched across the room, heavy with unspoken fears and doubts. She felt the weight of their unfulfilled potential pressing down on her, but she also sensed a flicker of hope. Let us take a moment, Aisha suggested, her voice firm yet soft. What if we acknowledge our fears together? Instead of pushing them aside, what if we really dive into them? A few heads nodded slowly, the tension starting to dissolve. Aisha caught Margot's encouraging smile, then turned to Lena, whose expression radiated empathy. Steve, why don't you start? What are you truly worried about? Steve shifted in his seat, the light framing his face. I worry that we're just spinning our wheels in meetings like this. What if we share all this excitement and then nothing changes? Will it even matter? His words hung in the air, filled with the stark honesty of self-doubt. Aisha felt that every person in the room shared that fear to some extent. They had dared to share their hopes in the dark, yet with the lights back, the reality of their past habits threatened to choke their newfound energy. Change is hard, Lena chimed in. But every step we take, even the smallest ones, has to start with a conversation like this. We can only create new paths if we first acknowledge where we've been. A murmur of agreement rippled through the room, fear and hope swirling together like storm clouds before a break in the rain. Jordan leaned forward, igniting a fire within him. What if we took this moment and turned it into an action plan? If we're afraid to try, that's precisely why we must do it. Let us consider this a pledge to ourselves, clearly identifying our roadblocks and then brainstorming solutions. Yes. Margot burst out. If we map this out, we can address each fear head-on. This isn't just about us, it's about all the other people counting on us. We owe it to them to lead with courage. Inspired by Margot's words, Aisha felt her own fear morphing into determination. We all have strengths. Let us combine them instead of letting doubts pull us apart. Each of us can share when we felt empowered, even if the outcome wasn't what we expected. Those stories will fuel our fire. With hesitant enthusiasm, Steve spoke again. I remember when I stepped up in my department to push for inclusivity. I was terrified of backlash, but the outcome changed everything for the better. It was a risk worth taking. Others began to share their moments. Some were triumphant successes, while others were humbling failures. Presence filled the room, and as each story unfolded, Aisha noticed smiles start to shine through. They were discovering a shared human experience where vulnerability mingled with strength, but just as they began to gather momentum, the room fell silent once more. A sudden realization hit Aisha: they hadn't just amassed a collection of fears, they had built a foundation of trust. All right, Aisha said, feeling a swell of hope. Let us put it all on the table. What actions will reflect our commitment to each other? What will we do next to prove that we can change? But before anyone could answer, a loud crash echoed from outside. They all exchanged worried glances, apprehension washing over the group. What was that? Steve murmured, his eyes wide with trepidation. Now, not only were they confronting their fears internally, but an unforeseen external challenge had just materialized to test them further. Would they rise together, empowered by their shared stories, or would apprehension engulf them once more? Aisha could feel an urgent jolt of energy. They were about to face something bigger than themselves, and she had no idea what would happen next. The night was only beginning, and their journey was far from over. Aisha stood at the center of the circle, feeling the palpable tension thickening the air. The crash from outside had stolen their moment, turning their shared vulnerability into a collective alarm. As each person shifted in their seat, a sense of unease replaced the warmth of their earlier connection. Should we check it out? Jordan's voice cut through the silence. It was practical and laced with urgency. Aisha exchanged glances with the others, and the very thought of stepping back outside into the unknown made her heartbeat quicken again. I think we should, she replied, her tone catching a mix of nervousness and resolve. But let us stick together. Whatever's out there, we face it as a team. As they moved towards the door, she realized how the meeting had morphed from a discussion of fears into a literal confrontation with the unknown. It was oddly fitting. They had just started to work through their internal struggles, and now, it felt as if their outside world was mirroring those challenges. Pushing open the door, Aisha stepped outside first, followed closely by Steve and Lena, with the others forming a supportive wall behind them. The crisp night air felt alive, sending chills down her spine. The moonlight painted the parking lot in ghostly silver, revealing the source of the commotion. In the middle of the lot, a small group of individuals had gathered around a knocked-over trash bin, strewn with discarded papers and food containers. A cardboard sign flapped in the wind, half-torn and illegible. A woman, clearly upset, stood at the center of it all, gesturing wildly as she spoke to another person holding a phone. Aisha's instincts kicked in. We should see if we can help, she said, taking a tentative step toward the gathering chaos. She felt a ripple of agreement behind her, urging her on. As they approached, the woman turned, her frustration evident. It's just so unfair. She cried out. This is what's left of everything we tried to organize for the community. No one cares. Aisha's heart ached at the sight. She recognized the raw pain in the woman's words, it mirrored the fears they had just shared. Without thinking, Aisha crossed the distance that separated them. We care, she said softly, her voice cutting through the noise. What happened? The woman, surprised by the show of support, started to explain her story. They were trying to organize a community cleanup, but someone had mocked their efforts by tossing everything around. Aisha glanced back at her team, their expressions a blend of compassion and determination, emboldened by their previous discussions. Incredibly brave of you to take a stand, Steve added, stepping forward, but it's clear that this isn't just about cleaning up a mess. It's about community, connection making a difference. The woman's expression shifted from frustration to confusion, then curiosity. Aisha could see the flicker of hope in her eyes. It sparked something inside Aisha as she realized they had the chance to do something real. Let us help you, Aisha offered. We can all work together, not just to clean this space, but to reignite the spirit of what you're trying to accomplish. Let us gather people, make stronger bonds, and show that caring matters. As they began to pick up debris, laughter, and light chatter replaced their earlier weight of dread. The small act of kindness ignited something deeper, uniting not just their group but the community around them. With each piece of trash they tossed aside, they shared ideas, plans, and moments of joy, clinging to the hope that if they could face this small struggle together, perhaps they could tackle the larger fears awaiting them in the confines of their own lives. But just as the energy crescendoed, Aisha caught a glimpse of something moving in the shadows. A figure stood at the edge of the lot, watching them intently. A chill swept through her, and she turned back to her group, heart racing. Who was it? What did they want? The night was turning more complex than she'd ever imagined, and their journey was only beginning. What challenges lay ahead that would test their newfound connections? The figure at the edge of the lot remained unmoving, shrouded in shadows, making Aisha's chest tighten. She turned to her friends. Do you see that? Her voice trembled slightly, caught between curiosity and dread. Jordan squinted into the darkness, then nodded. Yeah, it looks like someone's just watching us. Steve stepped closer, trying to peer into the obscured corners of the lot. Should we go over? Maybe they need assistance too. Aisha weighed her options, glancing back at the woman in disarray, who seemed momentarily forsaken by her initial chaos. The community members had become engaged, forming ad hoc teams to clean up not just the trash but also what those scattered remnants represented: a shared mission. Yet, this mysterious figure was a stark contrast to that energy. They began to gather closer, pooling their courage. Aisha took a deep breath, sending out an anchor through their group. We should stay together. Safety in numbers, right? Right. Lena affirmed, although her voice wavered slightly, the assurance not entirely taking hold. As they approached, the figure stepped into the moonlight. It was a man, disheveled and gaunt, with a bag slung over his back. His hair hung limply around his face, and his eyes darted around as if searching for something lost. Hey! Aisha called out, her voice steadier than she felt. Are you okay? Do you need help? His head snapped up, immediately wary. I didn't mean to intrude. The tension in his voice made Aisha acutely aware of his fragility. It's not an intrusion, Steve said gently. We're just trying to clean up this place. We'd love to help you too, if you need anything. The man hesitated, glancing back to where shadows stretched along the far side of the lot, darkening the edges of his existence. I just came looking for something. I didn't mean to cause any trouble. The woman who had been so distraught stepped forward, empathy filling her features. We're all a little lost right now, but we can find things together. I know what it feels like to fight for something that seems out of reach. Aisha felt the weight of those words sink into her bones. The man's eyes flickered with something, a glimmer of connection. Hope. Do you really think it matters? He asked. We do think it matters, Aisha replied, stepping closer. It matters a lot. Life gets messy, but we can help each other. You don't have to do it alone. He nodded, a flicker of indecision playing on his face. Slowly, he made his way toward them, the group drawing him in with invisible cords of trust. As they began to talk, a quiet but palpable transformation occurred. The darkness that had been closing in seemed to lift, revealing common ground instead of avoiding it. Aisha felt the collective heartbeat of the group, hope thrumming against the despair they had once hesitated to confront. The thrill of connection surged through her, but her attention was diverted again when something rustled behind the man. A flash of metal caught her eye. It was another figure emerging from the shadows. A deep voice echoed into the night, heavy with authority. "What's going on here?" Her heart raced anew. What now? The unexpected voice pulled them back into uncertainty, shifting the dynamic once more. Was this a friendly face or someone there to disrupt the fragile bond they'd begun to weave? Aisha could feel the unease thicken again, but she also sensed the strength of unity behind her. The night promised more complexities, and Aisha found herself questioning whether they really had what it took to face whatever was coming. Could they stand firm against whatever challenge had just stepped into their delicate balance? Aisha's eyes darted to the figure stepping out from the shadows. The newcomer was tall, built like a guard, with an expression that couldn't quite be read. There was a glint of authority in the way he carried himself, but no clear indication of intent. Tension curled around the group like smoke, thickening the atmosphere. "Who are you?" the man demanded, fixing his gaze on the disheveled figure they had approached. "What are you doing here?" The gaunt man appeared to shrink, anxiety radiating off him. "I was just looking for something," he stammered, the bravery he had just begun to muster fading like a candle in the wind. Aisha felt her heart race. She stepped forward, positioning herself between the two men. "We were just trying to help him. Everyone here is trying to make things right, to come together." Her voice held a firmness that she could barely believe was coming from her own mouth. The authoritative figure softened just enough for Aisha to catch a glimpse of his uncertainty. "Look, I don't want trouble. This place has had enough of it." "Neither do we," Steve interjected, inching closer to support Aisha. "We're cleaning up the lot together. That means helping everyone who needs it." The man paused, his brow furrowing for a moment. Aisha observed as the fight drained from his posture, revealing the tiredness hidden beneath. "I'm just here to keep things in check. I didn't mean to sound harsh." Aisha felt the tension start to thaw. "You don't have to be on the defense. We can all be in this together." The man's eyes flicked to the group, Lena, Jordan, and the distressed woman, all watching with wide-eyed curiosity. "I've seen too many people take advantage of situations like this, unguarded. But maybe I was wrong to assume you all were different." The gaunt man stepped forward, encouraged by Aisha's words. "I'm not looking for trouble. Just for something I lost." His voice cracked slightly, laying bare an unguarded vulnerability that resonated with the group. "Maybe we can look for it together," Lena suggested, her voice softening the mood further. The idea hung in the air like a promise, daring to reshape their reality. "What is it you're looking for?" Aisha asked, genuinely curious. As her fear began to ebb, she unexpectedly felt a swell of empathy. With a hesitant sigh, he pulled out a worn, tattered map from his bag, inking it with memories of loss. "It's old family territory. I thought I could find it again." "Family?" Jordan echoed, brows furrowing in intrigue. "So it's not just about the place, but who it belongs to?" The revelation sparked conversation, drawing them all closer. Aisha could feel the optimism brewing. There was a shared understanding forming, something deeper than they had all anticipated. "We can help with that, whatever it takes," Aisha encouraged, scanning the group's faces. The weariness and uncertainty that had lingered in the air began to be replaced by something warmer, determination. As they exchanged plans and ideas, the man who had arrived with authority shifted from watchful guardian to unexpected ally. "I can help too. I know these streets well," he offered, surprising even himself. But before they could dive deeper into collaboration, the darkness shifted again, casting a shadow where unity had just begun to bloom. Another sound echoed through the lot, sharper and more threatening. A distant siren grew louder, cutting through their moment. "What is it?" Aisha thought, her pulse quickening in sync with the approaching noise. Was this help or yet another complication? The air thickened once again, and uncertainty wrapped itself around her like a chill. How much have they really changed? As the siren's wail reverberated in the night, Aisha couldn't shake the question: would their newfound bond survive whatever storm was coming their way? The siren grew louder, slicing through the quiet unity they had just built. Aisha turned toward the source, her heart thumping wildly. Faces turned anxious, and the moment felt precarious, teetering on the edge between hope and despair. "What do we do?" Steve asked, his voice laced with dread. Aisha took a deep breath, willing herself to remain calm, to be the anchor in this swirling storm of emotions. "We stand together," she said firmly, meeting each gaze with determination. "Whatever comes our way, we face it as a team." The siren stopped, replaced momentarily by an eerie silence. Aisha could see the external world encroaching, yet in that brief moment, the people around her remained a stronghold. She glanced at the newcomer, the man who had been merely an onlooker but now was part of their tapestry. "Whatever this is, we can handle it," Aisha said, hoping to instill courage in everyone, including herself. "Together, we can show that we're committed to our community." Just as she finished speaking, a police car pulled around the corner, lights flashing, but the siren now silent. Officers stepped out, surveying the scene, their eyes landing on the group gathered in the lot. Aisha's heart raced again, but she noticed something: a flicker of curiosity, not hostility, in the officer's demeanor. "Is everyone okay here?" One officer called out, approaching cautiously. Aisha stepped forward, ready to speak for the group gathered. "We're working on a community project, cleaning up the area and helping each other connect." Her voice echoed with confidence, bolstered by her team's steady presence behind her. "Looks like you're starting something good," the officer replied, his tone softening. Aisha could see the tension in his shoulders relaxing as he took in the scene. "We want to make sure everyone feels safe. Do you need any assistance?" Aisha nodded, feeling the small victory swell within her. "If you could just keep an eye on things while we finish up, that would mean a lot. There's a sense of community shaping here, and we want to ensure we're all looking out for one another." "Absolutely," the officer replied, exchanging glances with his partner. "We will keep an eye out. Thanks for making a positive impact." As the officers moved to patrol the area, she felt the rush of support ripple through her group. They'd faced the potential fear of confrontation, and instead of backing down, they had built a bridge. Aisha looked around at her team, gleaming with fresh energy. Hope was brightening the room, and it wrapped around her like a warm blanket. "That was incredible," Jordan said breathlessly. "We didn't just stand our ground, we showed that community matters." Aisha could feel her heart swelling. "Yes. And it's not just about us, it's about everyone involved. I want us to find a way to continue this momentum. Let us take our message beyond this lot." Lena stepped up next to her, a glint in her eyes. "Let us organize a community cleanup day. Invite everyone, the families, the youth, all of us. It'll show that we truly mean what we say." Aisha's palms tingled with excitement. "And we can share our stories along the way, build our network and connections even stronger. This is only the beginning." The group erupted in chatter, ideas bouncing around, filling the air with vibrant energy. They spoke of reaching out to local leaders, students, and even businesses. The atmosphere shifted, no longer a place of uncertainty and fear, but a canvas ripe for change. The room buzzed with creativity, and every person in it became an integral thread of the tapestry reform tech could weave together. As laughter and chatter filled the parking lot, the man who had been searching for his lost territory took a hesitant step forward. "Can I help too?" His voice was small yet hopeful. "Absolutely." Aisha cheered. "We'd love that." With that, shadows faded under the bright buzz of purpose, hope igniting like sunlight breaking through clouds. In that moment, Aisha realized they had transformed what began as an uncertain board meeting to an empowered front. They were a symbol of change, a family that could grow together, one step at a time, spreading out into the broader community. As the night progressed, laughter replaced anxiety, and they held onto each other's stories like precious gems. Together, they would create a legacy not just for themselves but for generations to come. And as Aisha looked around at her newfound family, a brilliant smile washed over her face, knowing they had the power to change the path ahead. This, she thought, was a moment to cherish and expand into a brighter future. Now, let us embrace this transformation. Don't wait. You need to subscribe now to the channel to witness more stories like this one, stories that inspire. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and keep our community alive. Comment below with your reactions and how this journey resonated with you. And remember, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to feel the power of transformation. This is the moment to show your support. Don't hesitate, every click matters.